Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Well, welcome Sue Willoughby to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I can't wait to get into our conversation today. Our free call was amazing. You're a wonderful, multidimensional woman, and I can't wait for you to share your story because it's a good one. We met through the podcast, and I'm just so happy that we met. And I'm going to hand the floor over to you right away and just give us a little bit of a backstory, and let's get into it.
All right. Well, thank you for that fabulous introduction. And I'm done here. I think that was great. So thank you.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate you inviting me on your show. So a little bit about me. I am multidimensional and I have done so many things in my life. And I think part of that is because of the way I grew up with an alcohol. My comfort zone was discomfort. I'm like, well, how much worse can it get? Right. I'm just going to try this thing, whatever that thing was at the moment. So, I've had a pretty diverse background. Just explore. I'm very curious by nature, but I really do think that growing up the way I did made me really independent because I a lot of times had no choice, right? It was like, okay, fend for yourself because I was an only child, which can be good and can be challenging. I don't have any siblings to fight with or anything. But I did find that throughout my entire life, horses were always this thread where I felt safe and I felt good. I just was like, I just want to be around the horses all the time. So horses have come in and out of my life through all of my trials and tribulations. It's just, they always feel like home to me, if that makes sense.
Right.
And yeah, I've done a lot of things. I've worked in corporate America. I've been in corporate training, technical training. I've been a DJ and a roller derby ref. And I started taking polo lessons a couple of years ago. Private pilot. I own my own plane. I go all in when I go in, but I don't ever feel like I have to, like, this is the be all and end all. If you want to try something, just try it. That's the beauty of it. There's always so many things that you can experiment with and live your life in a way that you don't end up with a bucket list at the end.
And I love that. I love that you're saying you don't end up with a bucket list at the end. And I often think too, like, we need to stay this curious. And if you're not curious, like, get started getting curious, because I think, when I think about what my parents are going to leave behind for me, it's going to be a bunch of boxes, and I want to leave behind a legacy. And I think that's sort of kind of sounding like what you're doing. You're going to leave this legacy behind that you did all these great things. So you have a coaching business right now. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I predominantly work with women of a certain age, over 40, 45, all the way up to, however, it's never too late to make a change is the way I look at it. And the thing that I bring to the table with my clients, and I do use horses in my coaching practice, so I'll just kind of drop that little seed in there, is that, like we just said, it's never too late to make a change. It's never too late to, try something new, because I feel like women, when they get to a certain age, they've either reached a plateau in their career, or if they've been working and raising a family, the kids move out, they go to college, they do whatever, and then their identity has been wrapped up in something else other than themselves. So they have never given themselves permission to try something new, or they just don't know how to start. So that's what I do. I help people work through that. Like, if they want to try something new, it's this big, huge, scary thing. And the bottom line is you just have to break it down into tiny little steps. And like I said, you don't have to go all in, but if something interests you, try it out. If it doesn't fit, you don't go to the store and buy 10 pairs of jeans and not even try them on, right? And then get them home and like, oh, so that wasn't a good idea. And then hang them up in the closet. You try stuff on. You're like, well, that fits. That looks good. Or no, I'm not sure yet. So I don't want to spend $20,000 on a new something or other if I'm not going to work out. So yeah.
I think too, like when you say, when women get a certain age, I think we live, like, especially our age group, right? Maybe when our like my kids won't grow up that way, because I've encouraged them to think a little differently and think outside of the stereotypical box. But I grew up in a very stereotypical lifestyle. You went to school, you got married, you got the picket fence around this house, you got the Range Rover. And it's like, wait a second, this is not life that I was ever meant for me. And I could feel it, and then you get married and everybody's asking you, are you going to have kids? When are the kids coming? And it was just like, oh my God. And then I think what happens is, okay, now we're at retirement age. So it's time to hit the golf course, go out for ladies' lunches, travel, which are all great. But it's not like what I want to do. I don't even see myself actually retiring. So I love that you're saying, help these women figure out kind of what's next. There's always some sort of life event too that happens where it makes them start to think. And a lot of the time it's kids leaving the house. And then they're like, wait, what? My whole life, as you say, the identity was wrapped up in that. I think for me, my word this year is untethered. I'm just trying to get like a little untethered. And for me, it's such a good word. I've stayed really connected to that. So tell me, I want to bring in the horses now because I learned maybe 10 years ago that horses for girls growing up was a really good thing, but I never really understood it because I never got my kids into horses but I had friends that did. And I know that they were like, this was very important for girls. But then even as we get older, I didn't really realize the connection with horses. So walk us through it.
Yeah, it's true. I think that a lot of girls go through a horsey phase, whether they stick with it or not. I think that there's that thing, and part of it is just horses are very nurturing, and they're big scary animals to a lot of people, but people don't realize that they're actually prey animals, which is an interesting thing to think about. You like a 1,200-pound prey animal? How does that work? But they know and they can sense because of the fact that they are prey animals, and like every cell in their body is all about survival and am I safe and what's going on around me and what was that, and also communicating non-verbally with their other herd mates. Now, even if they're in a stable where they each have their own stall, they're still communicating. They're still like, what's going on over there? What's going on? I mean, they know when they're out in the pasture, they communicate through so many different pieces of their bodies, like their ears and their eyes, and the swish of a tail can mean a whole lot. So I think that people and girls especially, I don't know why women are more drawn to horses often than men, but they just make you feel good. And it's also a community, other horsey girls around or other horsey people around. So I think it's a sense of community and the community of the horses themselves. You're kind of part of the herd, so to speak. And it just, because they can understand what you want and what you need on the inside, then they can mirror back to you what it is that is really going on. And you might not realize it at the time, but you're like, why is the horse doing this? It's kind of because that's what you're putting out to the horse. And so the horse is just giving it right back to you.
Really? You have retreats that you incorporate this work. So what happens when I arrive at your retreat and, like you said, this horse is mirroring? Do you kind of prep people for that? Like, I did not know that, what you described. I only learned that maybe just a few months ago, this whole thing. I've been following this woman on Instagram, but that's a whole other story. But just the power of how a horse can actually take that feeling on. I had no idea. So like, what does it, like, how do you ever see a transformation from the time somebody arrives at the retreat to after? Like, how do you incorporate all of that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a lot of questions all in one, but I understand what you want to know. Let's back it up to just like a one-on-one session with a horse.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Perfect.
for a group, so if I'm doing a one-on-one session, obviously it's just me, the horse, and the person. And even in a group setting at a retreat, I usually co-facilitate with another Equus coach, and we'll sort of split up the group. Our retreats are never more than 12 people, so that we can have, everybody has plenty of horse time and plenty of individual time. And when somebody's working one-on-one with a horse and they're getting coaching around their session, other people are observing and listening and taking notes, and you can see so many people like that are listening going, oh yeah. And they're nodding and they're going, oh my God, yes, 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 yes. So what are they seeing and what are they resonating with? So in a individual session with a person and a horse, I give them an intro. I give them some safety pointers about how not to get kicked in the head or to lose a finger. Horses aren't going to be mean, but they're like, oh, curious. These fingers, they look like carrots. Let me have a bite of that. So I teach them how to approach the horse, how to work with the horse energetically, get it to move if that's what they want to do. And then they're free to interact with the horse. The horse is at liberty, meaning that it's not wearing a halter or a lead rope unless they want to specifically do like a leading type of an exercise. And then I'm watching the horse's behavior and the human's behavior. How are they attempting to interact with the horse? And what is the horse doing and how is the horse behaving in response to what the human is either saying or doing? And there's so many different ways that, the horses are going to give feedback. How their ears work independently of each other. Are they staying away from the person? Are they not, So the thing is, if they are not interacting or they're apprehensive about coming into the person's, orbit or energy bubble or whatever, it's because they don't feel safe entirely. And typically that comes from the person being incongruent. And by that, I mean, the person is putting on some sort of persona of that they feel that they need to for the horse's benefit or whatever. And the horse is looking directly through that facade and saying, your heart is beating a mile a minute and you are, so whatever else is going on in there, they can sense your energy. And if they feel like that energy is not good or safe for them, then they will keep their distance. Once the person can get grounded and be more aligned with their inside and their outside, the horse doesn't care. Here's the thing. Horses are not judging you. They don't care if you're frightened. They don't care anything that's going on in your life. When you're in the presence of a horse, you are part of the herd. So they're looking to you for that kind of communication, that nonverbal communication. Are you here to hurt me? Am I safe with you? What is going on with you? And if you try and be pushy with them or whatever, they will push back, right? Because they're going to be like, hey, like a few times I've gone to the barn and, I've been like stressed out and everything. And I'm trying to like rush the horse through something. And the horse is like, not happening. I don't care what agenda you have, but this is not how we're going to interact today. I'm like, okay, got it.
So when you are working in that environment, are you helping somebody? Like, are you explaining to them, like, excuse me, what's happening at that point? And like, can they start to, like, is that part of the retreat?
So part of the coaching is that I'm not telling them what's going on. I'm asking them, what are you noticing about the horse? What's coming up for you? I've seen people go into the arena and just start projecting and throwing up all of their stuff onto the horse. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, the horse doesn't like me. The horse is bored with me. The horse is, doesn't want to be around me. Right? All these stories start spilling out. And I just have to take a step back and take a deep breath and say, why do you say that? Why do you think the horse is bored with you? And then they may say something like, well, everybody treats me that way. People stay away from me, or okay, well, let's talk about that, right? And so by watching the horse's behavior, it's like a feedback loop, and it opens up the opportunity for me to ask some really good open-ended questions and really make the person become more aware of how they're presenting and what is really going on. So it's interesting because, our bodies do store everything that's happened to us, and so everything starts in your body. So if you have an emotional response or a gut reaction or whatever, it's going to start somewhere in your body. So the horse is really good at helping you figure out what, and if I ask someone what they're feeling, they may tell me just a word, right? I feel mad. Well, what? And then it gives me the opportunity to ask them, what does mad feel like to you? Like when you get mad, what does it feel like? Where does it start in your body? And people are like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know. I just feel mad. Well, tell me describe mad to me, so it helps people get into their body. And then I can also then help them pull those little pieces out. So you're not in your head, because when you're in an arena with a horse, you've got a big animal in there, and it really kind of forces you to be present with them. and be present with yourself more importantly.
Yeah, and I think being present is just, I mean, we all say it. It's a kind of a cliche word, like let's be present, be in the moment, even being untethered. It talks a lot about kind of releasing everything out of your mind, trying to get the water smooth, which is really the representation of your mind. Yeah, no, that's really good. So let's move into a little bit back to that curiosity, because I really think that I love that you have always been curious. There's reasons why you grew up very independent, which is great. The thing is how does somebody be curious? Like, what does that really mean, you know?
I think we're all curious. I just think that, it's like we all are born with intuition, and then it just gets stomped out of us by societal norms or whatever. And like you said, you went through a really nice demonstration of the societal norms. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, you get the car, you get the house, you get the right? So you're so busy on that societal norm treadmill that you stop being curious. So it's a muscle that we just stop using. And I think we're all curious. I mean, how many times have you sat at a stoplight and your mind wanders to like, I wonder what it would be like to, go run through the field barefoot. That's a weird excuse. But I mean, you're daydreaming, right? That's curiosity. And then the guy behind you honks the horn and flips you off or does whatever. And you're like, oh, shoot, it brings you back to reality. And then you're like, oh, I can't be curious anymore. But I think we're all curious. And it's just, the thing is about the horses, once again, I think everything comes back to awareness. And that's what the work is really good for, is building that awareness. If you start to be more and more aware of how many times during the day you are actually curious about something, and it's just something that may pop into your head and just be like, oh, I never thought of that. That sounds cool. That is being curious. And I think curiosity then leads to fear and doubt. If I'm curious about something, if I want to try something, you can immediately spiral down that rat hole of, well, if I try this thing, then I'm going to have to go, and then you're like, no, if I do that, then everybody's going to think I'm an idiot. And why would I want to try? Right?
As midlife women, I think we end up saying we're too old. I mean, I actually even remember when I was in my mid-30s, I thought, oh God, I actually want to go and take a psychology degree, because I'm very curious about the human mind and the way that we do things. I was like, oh my God, 35, going back to school. Plus I was raising 2 kids on my own. It was just not even, so, all these dreams get put on back burners. And then when we get older, we don't go after them. Like, I love the fact that you have this DJ background. I always say, like, if I come back in my next life, I'm going to be a DJ. I've always loved music, migrated to music, used it as a healing thing. But then I was always like making playlists for people. Like back in the day, I was making cassette tapes, and then I was loading people's iPods, all that kind of stuff. But so tell us a little bit, like, how does somebody, like when you're working with women, what do you see that's really kind of the biggest barrier into understanding that they've got all this life experience that they can actually bring forward into something new?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the word new. Yes, women do have so much experience, whatever they've done. If they've been raising a family, if they've been working, whatever it is, they do have all this experience and they don't know how it translates. And the word new scares the shit out of people because they're really good at what they do now. But when you try something new, guess what you are? You're a beginner again. And I think that people just don't want to be in that vulnerable space of, when you try something new, you're going to suck at it. I'm sorry, you are. Get over it. Right? You go to take an art class and, stop comparing yourself with everybody else in the class. Just what are you getting out of it? Why are you taking this art class? So be prepared to suck. It's okay. It's part of the journey. It really is the fun part. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to start playing polo at 64, right? Why not? What the hell? Yeah, I ride horses. How hard can it be? Well, it's a little harder than you think. But
But okay, so let's use that as an example, Sue. Like, let's use that as an example. Okay, I'm going to go start taking polo lessons. Like, oh my God, the first thing I know most women are going to think is, what are my friends going to think? if they are not currently in that community. So how do you get over that? Like, how do you push through what are people going to think? Or they may have a spouse that says, no, we're retiring. We're going to be on the golf course, girl. Like, or whatever the case may be. And you're like, I don't really want to do that. I gave my whole life to my family and now I want to give something back for me. But what will people think? How does somebody get through that?
You got to stop worrying about what people think. And, it's going to be in little increments. You just got to pull your big girl panties all the way up to your chin and be like, well, if they don't like it, well, let them, right? As Mel Robbins would say, let them think whatever they're going to think. That's the beauty of being with horses, right? So if somebody comes to me with that thing and says, hey, I want to try something new, but I'm afraid what people are going to think. I just don't know where to start. Okay, come on in here with the horse. Horses don't judge you. They don't care what you look like. They don't care what you want to do with your life. They just care that you show up as yourself. And that's all they're asking. That's all they're asking. So if you can do that with a horse and take those baby steps, and that's how you let it go. And I think the thing is, baby steps and turtle steps, whatever you want to call them, I call them turtle steps, is just, you have to start somewhere. So if you're so worried about what other people are going to think, right, then that's your first thing. That's your first hurdle that you have to get over. Why are you worried about what other people think? That's a valuable question. Whatever the answer is, then why are you worried about that? What bearing does that have on your life? So somebody thinks you're weird or crazy for doing something. Who cares? Who cares? You care clearly, but why? Why do you care? Getting over yourself. You asked me, how do you get over yourself? How do you stop being judged? Worry about stop being judged. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like that's an easy thing to say, right? Like, just get over it. And I don't even know if a lot of women have that confidence because, we do lose a lot of confidence as we get older and for all the different reasons, for all these different types of reasons. But it's like, okay, so beyond just get over it, I guess, do you do it secretly? Do you start to do things that are, okay, I'm just going to try it, but tell nobody? Like, that I'm living with this woman right now, my friend, and, she does so much. She keeps herself so busy. And I really admire that. But a lot of people might look at it like, okay, she's maybe not settled in her life, or, why does she always have to stay so busy all the time? Can't she just relax? And it's like, well, no, she wants to, like, she doesn't want to be this 80-year-old sitting at home on the couch watching, MacGyver or whatever, whatever show it is, So when you're working with somebody and they come into your program, beyond just like trying to get a feeling of what they want to do, how do you help them take a look back at their skills? Because I know that when I talk to a lot of women, they are like, well, I don't have any skills. So the only skill I have is that I've been this HR director or I've been in marketing for the last 15 years. And how do you help them uncover like more and more of those skills that they even learned, even as a mom or a wife or a partner of some sort, but those intangible skills?
Okay. So let's go back to the question about, yes, it is easier to say, just get over it. And I'm not being flip about that. It's part of the process. And in order to do that, you do need to peel back a lot of layers. Like, why do you feel so concerned about what other people think? And it's just, by peeling back the layers, you eventually get to the root of whatever it is that the person is dealing with. Or maybe it's just, we all feel insecure in an unusual spot. Like if you listen to Tim Ferriss, some of his early stuff talking about, I don't know if you know who Tim Ferriss is. He's but he'll be like, just go do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Like go out into the busy mall, and I'm just making this up, go in the middle of a mall and just lay down on the floor, right? Yeah, you don't have to do that to that extreme, but if there's something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, like start small, right? Just, you got to kind of get out of your comfort zone and stop worrying about what people think. And to a lot of people, they won't go to a restaurant alone. And, and I'm not talking about McDonald's or, something else like that. But even that, some people don't want to do that. They don't want to do anything by themselves. So try something small. Just try something small. Whatever it is that makes you feel uncomfortable or that is going to cause you worry about what other people are thinking, then try that. Try a tiny little version of that. And then when you're in it, don't just like do it real quick and then get it over with like, "Phew, I did that." How did that make you feel? What were you thinking about when you were, were you in the middle of like laying down in the middle of the mall and people stepping over you and staring at you and stuff? People do weird stuff all the time now, by the way. So stop worrying about what other people think. But for example, I decided to, I don't know why, I wanted to, I had a Wii, remember Wii, that workout thing? And there's a little
I
boxing app in there, right? And I'm like, why, maybe I'll just go take some boxing lessons or go to a boxing gym. So I found a local boxing gym that offered boxing fitness and I went to the class. And the first thing when I walked, and I'm by myself, I didn't take anybody with me for a security blanket. And they handed me a jump rope. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like hang myself? I don't know. They said, no, just get out on the floor. We do a warm up before. And I'm like, the last time I jumped rope was, and I was not even good at it when I was a kid, awful at it. And I said, and I'm watching all these people, they're doing crossovers and they're, and it was like, have you ever seen a boxer like jump rope? It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So I found this spot in the back of the gym and I started flip the rope over, step over it, and the thing that they told me, they said, nobody's watching you. They are just looking at themselves. And I went, I still don't believe you, but okay, I'll put that thought in my head and go for it. Pretty soon I was, I'm jumping rope without stopping, so it was all about like just hearing somebody else say, nobody's looking at you. Nobody gives a rat's ass about you and the fact that you can't jump rope, right? So think about it that way, that nobody's really looking at you. Everybody's really worried about how they appear to you. So if you think you're doing something that looks foolish, somebody else may be looking at you going, God, I wish I had the guts to do that. And
Yeah.
they may be looking at you with admiration and not judgment.
And I think we often like that was such a good story because you're right. Nobody really cares. And yeah, and we think they do, but they actually don't. They don't really care. But the whole fact of like just trying it and doing it. And I think a lot of people will cast their own projection onto what you're
Absolutely.
doing as well, right? So it's not like, oh, my friend Keely here, she's out doing all this, taking Italian, this and that, and she's taking tennis lessons and this and that. Nobody's really saying she's crazy. What they're saying is, I could never be like that. And
Right.
when they bring their own insecurities to it, it's really crazy for sure, for sure. Okay, so Sue, you've got a podcast. Talk a little bit about that.
Can I just say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point about, people around you, if they are judging you, it's because they see you moving forward. Like they see your friend having fun and enjoying her life. And they don't want that because they don't have that. So they're going to do everything in their power to
Right.
keep you stuck. I had a coach one time that said, if you feel like you are the smartest, most competent person in the room, then you need to find another room where you're going to be challenged. That's my answer
Hey,
to that.
that's good. I love it.
I love that. I will never forget that. I was like, because your people get used to you and they want you to stay there because if you're doing cool stuff and you're going beyond them, they feel like they're going to be left behind. So of course they're going to try and bring you down. So that's another good thing to
Yeah.
think about. Podcasts. Yes, I do. I have two.
Why did I not know that? I thought it was just one. Maybe we did talk about that.
That's okay. Yes, I have two podcasts. One is called A Life Worth Being, where it's very much like this. It's an interview show, and I talk to women who have gone through these transformations and come out on the other side and pull that wisdom out of them so that they can inspire my listeners. And then my second podcast is with one of my fellow Equus coaches, Frida, and it is called The Air is Free. Now, she's from Sweden, so the translation is Luften är fri, meaning the air is free, meaning that we are all free. We have our own free space to be and create and do. And so we talk about different things like different coaching techniques that we use and our own personal experiences. So it's a really fun show in that regard. And we're starting to invite people on the show to be coached in real time. So that'll be really fun too. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And then you've got a couple of retreats that are actually pending. I think you said there are
Yeah.
3 of them that are.
Yeah.
So
I don't know when your show's going to come out, but I do have one at the end of May, beginning of June, last weekend in May. And that's in Paso Robles, California with Frida, my co-facilitator. It's 3 days at a private ranch, gorgeous, fun, beautiful thing. And then we have we're repeating that in the fall, also in Paso Robles which is also a beautiful time of year down there. I don't think there's a bad time of year in Paso Robles, California, but
yeah.
and then I have one in September with another fellow Equus coach, Nancy, and that is going to be in Colorado. And she works pretty much exclusively in the recovery space. So it is an alcohol-free event, and it is all-inclusive, lodging, meals, everything. So it's going to be a really beautiful experiential retreat in Colorado at a beautiful ranch. So all fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, no, awesome. So, Sue, where does somebody find more information about those?
Yeah, I will send you a link specifically to the events, and that is on my website, willoughbycoaching.com/events. And the best way to find me is either at Willoughby Coaching or on Instagram, Sue_Willoughby.
Excellent. Well, hey, listen, you have been a real pleasure. I just love, as I mentioned at the beginning, the diversity, the dimension that you exist in this world like. So it's awesome. I hope that our listeners definitely found a tweak of inspiration, and I hope they check out those retreats, because I'm actually going to check them out myself. So I would
Absolutely.
love
I'd love
to
to have
just,
you.
yeah,
Absolutely. It's always a good experience. Trust me.
exactly. All right, Sue. Well, let's stay in touch. Thank you again for joining today's podcast.
Thanks for having me on here. It was fun. I loved it.
Great. Thank you. Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.